The ship breached Earth's exosphere with the grace of a diplomat and the silence of a predator. It shimmered like obsidian glass against the edge of sunrise, casting long, translucent shadows over the upper atmosphere. Earth's orbital defense network tracked its every meter, not because it was hostile, but because it might be. Captain Darien Locke didn't look up from the terminal as the advisory flashed red. He sipped cold black coffee, the kind only career soldiers could stomach, then calmly inserted the final bolt into the chamber of his sidearm. The rest of his team, Mercer and Ramos, waited in the briefing lounge, quiet and unreadable. Commander Halvorson's voice cut into the silence through the intercom. "Locke, we got guests." Locke didn't answer. He holstered his pistol, smoothed down the creases of his black tactical coat, and stepped out. The walk to the upper conference chamber felt long, despite being just one level up. It wasn't the distance, it was the implication. The coalition didn't visit. They summoned. That they'd come here uninvited suggested one of two things: desperation or dominance. Either way, Locke was more interested in the third option, what they weren't saying. The chamber was tall, sterile, and windowless. At its center stood Ambassador Zelvorin, a being too symmetrical to be trusted. He looked humanoid in the way statues mimic people: tall, pale gray skin, crystalline eyes, and no visible mouth. His two guards flanked him like ceremonial shadows. A translator device on his collar pulsed softly as he turned to address the humans. "We bring an offer," it said, with a delay that made it sound rehearsed. Commander Halvorson stood beside Locke, shoulders stiff. "And that would be?" "Protection," the ambassador replied, tone as smooth as synthetic silk. "The galaxy is shifting. There are threats beyond your current perception. We wish to shield your world under the Coalition Charter: peace, security, resource networks, and territorial defense." Mercer, who'd entered quietly, raised an eyebrow. "From what?" The ambassador tilted its head, as if the question didn't compute. "From annihilation. From those who do not follow order. From chaos." Vince Ramos exhaled sharply through his nose. "Sounds like you're describing yourselves." The guards tensed. Locke stepped forward, his voice calm, deliberate. "We appreciate your concern, Ambassador. Earth's had its share of chaos. Civil wars, colony rebellions, economic collapse. We're still standing. If someone's threatening this planet, we'd like to see them try." The translator blinked again, slower this time. "This isn't a threat. It's a promise of alliance." "No," Locke corrected. "It's a pitch. One that smells of bait." Halvorson cleared his throat, trying to maintain diplomacy. "Captain Locke leads our long-range response unit. Specialized observation and neutralization. If there's something the Coalition knows that we don't, they're best equipped to investigate." Zelvorin's eyes flickered. "You have sniper teams in orbit?" Ramos grinned. "We got sniper teams in your nightmares." Mercer's voice was dry. "And we don't miss." The ambassador was still for a moment longer than normal. The translator pulsed, then reset. A demonstration of cooperation would ease tensions. A joint mission, scouting the outer rim systems currently under observation. Locke folded his arms. Systems already under Coalition protection? "A precautionary network," Zelvorin clarified. "We can provide coordinates and clearances." Halvorson gave Locke a subtle nod. The offer wasn't trust, it was bait. But bait had a purpose, and purpose meant trail. Locke turned to Ramos and Mercer. "Prep loadout. Cold gear, stealth profiles only. No active marks unless we're engaged first. I want eyes in 3 systems before they even realize we left." Ramos snapped a lazy salute. "Copy that, boss." As they left the chamber, Mercer walked beside him, quiet for a beat. "You believe them?" Locke's jaw was tight. "I don't believe anything that polished." "So what's the play?" Ramos asked. "We go find out what they're so eager to protect us from." The transport launched under night protocol. No fanfare, no communications, no planetary announcements. Echo Black left Earth's orbit like they'd never existed in the first place. 3 days into deep drift, Locke sat in the command seat of the silent recon frigate Shade 12. The ship was built for infiltration, not firepower. Its skin could mirror stars. Its heat signature could vanish like a ghost. On scans, it was debris, but its crew was lethal. Mercer leaned back from his console. Receiving system maps now. Looks like they're routing us to Cressida V, a terraformed outpost in Coalition territory. Supposed to be thriving. Supposed to be, Locke echoed. Satellite pings? Dead, Ramos said. No comms. Last signal was a month ago. Then silence. That's not peace, Mercer muttered. That's a grave. Still want to protect us? Ramos asked rhetorically, tapping his scope case. Maybe we should offer them protection. Locke nodded once. We drop in low orbit. No transmissions. Split recon in pairs. We don't fire unless they do first. Eyes open. Minds sharper. When the ship breached Cressida V's upper stratosphere, what they saw wasn't prosperity. It was emptiness. Buildings still like bones, tall, skeletal, and untouched. Roads were intact. Power grid still pulsed. But there were no people. Locke blinked slowly. No corpses. No signs of panic. Just absence. Ramos adjusted his visor. This place is too clean. Like it was evacuated without warning. Or without a struggle, Mercer added. Locke's mind raced. Too many questions. Too few answers. But one certainty pressed through his thoughts like a bullet chambered with intent. Whatever had come to Cressida V hadn't just erased the colony. It had replaced it with silence. Coalition calls this protection, Locke said softly. Mercer whispered. From who? Locke clenched his jaw. Wrong question. He stepped forward, surveying the hollow landscape beneath him, and corrected himself. From what? The wind on Cressida V didn't howl. It whispered, slow, unnatural, regulated, like the planet had been programmed to simulate life after losing it. Captain Locke crouched near a broken plaza terminal, eyes narrowed at the glimmering glass still intact. No scorch marks, no debris, just dust. Ramos moved past him, scanning with his scope in a smooth, fluid motion. No signs of heat signatures in the upper sectors, Ramos muttered. No ambient body warmth, no reactor bleed. It's like they packed up and left. Mercer knelt beside an access panel near a tram station. These systems are still drawing power. Lights on in government buildings. Refrigeration active in civilian quarters. Locke didn't respond. His jaw flexed slightly, his eyes always moving. He tapped his comms twice. Code for fan-out, silent pattern sweep. The team obeyed like clockwork. 2 hours later, they regrouped inside the hollowed-out transport terminal. Massive and pristine, but utterly empty. Not a footprint out of place. No looting. No broken glass. It wasn't abandonment. It was erasure. Locke stood at the center of the terminal, listening to the silence as if it could answer him. Ramos broke it first. You ever seen something so untouched feel as wrong? Mercer nodded. Clean as a memory someone wants you to forget. Locke spoke at last. Upload drone footage. Encrypt everything. I want this backed up 6 ways before we even breathe near Coalition airspace. Mercer slotted in a chip. Done. They set up camp in the upper control tower, watching night fall over a colony with no heartbeat. No survivors. No attackers. Just the echo of artificial peace. At 0300, a motion ping broke the stillness. Barely a flicker. Barely worth noting. But Locke was already awake. Sitting at the terminal in full gear. Sector Gamma 12. 17 clicks northeast, he murmured into the mic. 1 blip. Brief. Could have been atmospheric noise. Ramos's voice came back groggy but alert. Or bait. They moved out before first light. Cressida's sun rose sluggishly, casting a dull amber across the spires. As they closed in on Gamma 12, the landscape shifted. Buildings showed where here, paint peeling, plant life overgrown. The power grid flickered with intermittent failure. Then they found the first sign of resistance. Spray painted on a wall, hastily, in thick red strokes. They don't protect. They empty. Mercer took a still. Recent. Less than 2 weeks old. Where are the writers? Ramos asked. They moved deeper. 10 minutes later, Locke's hand shot up. Full stop. On the edge of a shattered atrium lay something Coalition ships didn't leave behind. Footprints. Fresh, unaligned, human-shaped. 3 sets. Heavy, leading downward. Locke signaled. Silent advance. They followed the trail down into a subterranean corridor. It smelled like copper and ammonia. Stale breath. Something lived here. They moved in single file, night vision lenses filtering green against the walls. The footprints ended at a reinforced hatch, partially open. Inside, 3 survivors stared back at them. They weren't armed. They weren't aggressive. Just gaunt-eyed, pale-skinned men dressed in one-civilian jumpsuits. One of them, barely in his 20s, whimpered when he saw the sniper team's weapons. "We're not with Coalition," Locke said evenly. The eldest stepped forward, voice raw. "Then leave. Now. If they think you're helping us, you'll vanish next." Locke didn't flinch. "We're not here to help. We're here to understand." The man's face twisted into a mix of scorn and pity. "Then you're already too late." Mercer stepped forward. "What happened here?" "They came," the old man said. "Not soldiers, not machines. Just light, soft blue pulses. We let them set up communication towers. Said it was for interstellar relays." Ramos swore under his breath. "Atmospheric psych emitters." The man nodded. 3 days later, people stopped talking, just stood in the streets, looking up, smiling. Locke's voice was a razor. "Mind conditioning?" "No. Worse," the survivor whispered. "Obedience. Willful surrender. Like something in your thoughts was softened, clipped. They made us choose not to resist." "What about you?" The man shook his head. "We lived near the mining edge. Radiation shielding was thicker. Maybe that helped. Maybe it was luck." Mercer frowned. "Where are the rest?" "Gone. Marched into their ships. Smiling. Families. Children. Like volunteers. They didn't struggle. They thanked them." The silence returned like a blanket soaked in frost. No one spoke. Then the old man added, "The towers are still broadcasting." Locke looked at Mercer. "Can you track the frequency?" Mercer had his rig out in seconds. Already on it. 30 minutes later, they were standing in front of a sleek black spire, 30 meters tall, humming softly. No guards. No cameras. Just a constant, rhythmic pulse like a heartbeat designed to override thought. Ramos stared at it. "I don't like that it's unguarded." "They don't need guards," Mercer said quietly. "It defends itself through influence." Locke stepped forward and placed an EMP charge at the base. Ramos raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that?" Locke didn't blink. "I want to see what happens when we cut the leash." They detonated it from cover. The pulse died with a low groan, like a creature exhaling its last. The tower fell silent. In the next 6 minutes, 5 more motion blips appeared on their scopes. Fast, non-linear, approaching from all sides. "Here we go," Ramos said, snapping his rifle into position. Shapes emerged from the distance, sleek, humanoid, chrome-skinned, limbs too long to be natural. Their faces were smooth, featureless ovals. Silent, efficient. Locke's command came without hesitation. "Engage on my mark." The first kill came before he finished the sentence. Ramos fired clean to the skull of the nearest construct. It didn't bleed, it sparked. Mercer threw a sonic disruptor that burst in midair, shorting 2 more. Locke moved between positions like smoke, his rifle barking 3 times, dropping 3 advancing figures mid-stride. But the machines didn't slow. "Smart targeting," Mercer called out. "They're adjusting to suppressive angles." Locke switched to high-impact rounds and took out the legs of the next wave. "Keep moving." Within 10 minutes, the last chrome figure collapsed with a whine and a sharp hiss of vented fluid. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Mercer exhaled. "That's the welcoming committee, huh?" "They don't want the towers down," Locke said. "Means they can't keep pretending it's voluntary." Ramos slung his rifle. "So we shut down more towers." "We can't do it alone," Mercer replied. "Not without exposing ourselves to the Coalition." Locke stared into the horizon, where another tower blinked against the dim sky, like a lighthouse for the blind. "We don't need to hit all of them," he said. "Just enough to show they can be hit." The team returned to survivors and handed over encrypted comms and survival rations. Locke knelt beside the old man. "You have people across the sector?" The man nodded slowly. "Hidden, scattered. Some of us remember Earth. Still believe." "Then tell them this," Locke said, his voice low. "They're not alone, and they're not helpless." As they lifted off hours later, leaving the fake piece of Cressida V behind, Mercer activated the first data burst. Encrypted footage, coalition towers, mind pulse readings, combat with unmarked machines, transmitted through deep space relays to human colonies, Earth Command, and independent outposts across 3 sectors. Let the galaxy see what protection really looked like. In the cockpit, Ramos stretched and looked over at Locke. "You think they'll take the bait?" Locke stared at the stars ahead. They already did. The Coalition called it the Protection Hub. Their data packet labeled it as a regional relay station. Communications, diplomacy, logistics. But Echo Black didn't need translation. From orbit, the moon's surface bloomed with sharp angles and black geometry. It wasn't a relay. It was a fortress. They approached under stealth orbit, masking emissions and scrubbing signatures. Locke stood over Mercer's shoulder as the tech mapped the terrain. A sharp ring of dark towers formed a perimeter. No conventional weapon emplacements. No visible patrols. Just silence and geometry. Exactly what the Coalition wanted you to underestimate. Thermal readings? Locke asked. 36 internal signatures, but most are low activity. Probably passive systems. A few are moving. Central chambers dense. Can't get a clean read. Locke gave a short nod. "That's where we're going." Ramos adjusted his rifle strap. "Permission to breach loud?" "Denied," Locke said, not looking back. "This isn't war. It's confirmation." They dropped onto the surface with soundless precision. Black suits against black stone. The entrance was carved into mountainside. No guards, no lights. Just a perfect vertical seam, like the planet itself had split open. Locke gave one hand signal. Ramos took point, Mercer behind him. Locke closed the gap. Inside it was colder. The walls hummed with energy, low, constant, artificial. The deeper they moved, the more organic the design became. Not carved, grown, alive. Ramos paused at junction, rifle raised. "Hear that?" They stopped. From below, barely audible, screaming. Faint, choked. Locke drew his pistol, voice razor thin. Down. Quiet. They descended in spirals. At level 6, the walls changed. Symbols emerged, etched into obsidian, curling in fractal loops. Mercer brushed a hand near one. It pulsed faintly under his glove. "Resonant inscription," he whispered. "Behavioral modifiers. Layered signal reinforcement." Translated, Ramos muttered, "Propaganda," written into the walls. They breached the lower level at 400 meters. The chamber was massive. Metal, stone, and something else. Organic scaffolding laced the ceiling like veins. In the center, cells, glass cages. Inside them, people. Some stared forward blankly. Others shook and mumbled. One pounded the glass, silently screaming. At least a dozen were human. Others from non-Earth species. All gaunt, all terrified. Locke moved forward, scanning faces. The third cell held an older man, sitting cross-legged, beard graying, uniform torn. When he looked up, Locke froze. It was Colonel Jarrett Stone. "Mercer," Locke said quietly, his voice shifting. "Override the cage." Mercer stepped forward, already hacking the nearby console. "That's Stone." Locke nodded once. He commanded Echo White, thought dead after the Paxson relay siege. Ramos approached the glass. "If the Coalition's hiding Black Ops veterans, they're not protecting anyone. They're neutralizing dissent." The door hissed open. Stone didn't move. Only when Locke stepped inside did recognition bloom in the Colonel's bloodshot eyes. "You're late," Stone rasped. Locke crouched. "You're not supposed to be alive." Don't feel like it, Stone replied. They took us after the siege. No trial, just drugs, lights, pulses, talk to us through our sleep. Locke's voice was quiet. Why keep you alive? To study obedience. How to break human will without bullets. I resisted too long. They locked me away, labeled me defective. Mercer opened 2 more cages. A young man stumbled out. An alien with golden skin collapsed, sobbing. Ramos helped them both upright. How many more levels? Locke asked. Stone coughed. 2 down, 1 deeper. The core. Is it guarded? Always. Locke stood. Then that's where we're going. They left behind half the prisoners. Too weak to move. Mercer set time charges on the power grid. They'll go free when we blow the floor controls. Assuming we're alive, Ramos muttered. They descended. The core chamber wasn't dark. It was light, brilliant blue-white, pulsing in concentric waves from a crystalline obelisk at its heart. Surrounding were the sentinels, 8 in total. Biomechanical giants, chrome-plated with vein-like conduits glowing under their armor. One turned as they entered. Its voice didn't come from a mouth, but filled the chamber from everywhere. You're unauthorized. Locke raised his rifle. So stop us. They did. The first sentinel moved like gravity with suggestion, a blur of silver and light. Ramos dropped to one knee and fired, hitting its head dead center. The round bounced off like spit against steel. Mercer threw an arc charge. It exploded midair, staggering 2 of them. Locke rolled forward, emptying a full magazine into a sentinel's leg. Sparks, hydraulic fluid. It stumbled but did not fall. Target joints. Locke barked. The room became chaos. One sentinel charged Ramos. He vaulted over a console, landed rolling, and planted an explosive charge at its spine. It detonated mid-twist, hurling the machine across the room like a broken toy. Mercer engaged 2 more. His rig emitted a high-frequency burst. Both paused, glitching. He seized a moment, pulled his secondary, and fired into their cranial seams. One collapsed. The other turned too late. Locke went straight for the obelisk. His eyes locked on the base, reading the glyphs etched into the foundation. Stone's voice crackled over comms. You destroy that, you break the whole conditioning grid across the sector. Locke didn't hesitate. The charge was small, focused, enough to fracture the core without triggering collapse. He set it with one hand while firing with the other. Then a sentinel knocked him across the chamber. He landed hard, vision spinning. Another advanced, arm transforming into a blade. As it swung, a sniper shot cracked through the chamber. The sentinel jerked sideways, system seizing. Ramos stood on a collapsed beam, rifle still smoking. Missed the eye, took the brain. Mercer reached Locke, pulling him upright. We've got 60 seconds before the grid resets. Or detonates. Or both. Locke triggered the charge. The light died. The room shook. Every sentinel froze. One fell. Another twitched once, then collapsed entirely. In the sudden dark, Locke's voice was the only constant. Pull out. They moved fast, grabbing Stone, 2 more prisoners, and whatever intel Mercer could copy on the fly. The moon trembled as systems shorted and control signals collapsed. When they reached the surface, alarms blared across the base in every known language. As they launched into low orbit, the entire facility behind them began to glow, then burn. In the ship, Stone sat in silence, watching the screen. You know what this means, he said. Locke nodded. The Coalition didn't offer peace. They offered compliance. And Earth declined. Ramos slumped into his seat, breathing hard. So what happens now? Mercer checked the relay. Data burst launched. The galaxy is going to see everything. Locke stared at the shrinking moon behind them. They'll know what we did and what we're capable of. No one said anything for a while. Then Ramos added, we should probably get home. Locke didn't turn. We're already the war they didn't want. The Coalition returned to Earth in silence, their ships black against the stars like punctuation waiting at the end of a sentence. 12 vessels in total. Clean, precise, their presence mathematical. No lights, no transmissions, just position. A gesture of looming consequence. Earth's skies remained blue, her ocean still. But above the stratosphere, death loomed in elegant orbit. Inside Defense Command, Captain Darian Locke stood before a tactical display that stretched wall to wall. Lines danced across it. Threat vectors, satellite readouts, orbital trajectories. All clean, all primed. Earth's defense system had never blinked. "Visual confirmation," said Lieutenant Mercer, his voice low but steady. 12 Coalition heavy class carriers. No escorts. Their flagships got full spectrum absorption, probably command-grade AI on board. Locke nodded once. "Weapons powered?" "No spikes," Mercer replied. "But their tracking systems are hot. They're daring us to flinch," came Ramos's voice from the corner. He was seated on a steel bench, field rifle resting against the wall beside him like a loyal hound. "It's not an invasion. It's a show. They want us to look small." Commander Halvorsen entered, carrying the weight of bureaucratic panic behind his crisp uniform. "They've made no statement. The Council's concerned we're risking open war." "We already had a war," Locke said. "They just didn't expect anyone to fight back." Halvorsen moved closer, lowering his voice. "I need to ask, Captain, are we prepared for this?" Locke didn't turn. "You don't prepare for moments like this. You decide who you are." The screen pulsed. A signal. Narrowband transmission. Encrypted. "About time," Mercer said, fingers flying across the console. Patching through. The screen shifted. Ambassador Zelvorn appeared, cast in sterile blue light. He looked exactly as before, symmetrical, emotionless, eyes like polished crystal. "A perfect lie. Earth," the voice came. "You have violated interstellar order. You have trespassed upon restricted facilities. You have liberated detained individuals from legally protected infrastructure. These actions represent aggression." Locke stepped forward. Those detained individuals were civilians and veterans. They weren't protected. They were erased. "You misunderstand peace," Zelvorn replied evenly. "No," Locke said, voice razor thin. "You weaponize it." A beat passed. The ambassador's tone remained steady. "The Council of Earth is offered one opportunity. Submit to coalition governance under observatory terms. You will retain local autonomy, but all interstellar decisions will defer to us." Ramos chuckled from the bench. "That's the politest way I've ever heard bend the knee." Mercer opened a private command window, typed in 3 words, showed the grid. On the main screen, one by one, orbital defense satellites lit up in red, each drawing target brackets over the coalition ships above. Then a map of Earth flickered into view: anti-orbital rail cannons, kinetic kill stations, drone fleets in high-altitude hold. Every weapon system Earth owned was awake, locked, and humming for orders. Zelvorn tilted his head. "You respond with force?" "We haven't fired," Locke said, "but we won't need to if you use your eyes." Mercer input a final string. The outermost coalition carrier, Ship 9, pinged an alert on their feed. It was now under Earth's guidance system control. Locked, not fired on, but tagged so precisely that any sudden movement would spell its instant disassembly. "We don't threaten," Locke continued. "We demonstrate." The ambassador paused, crystalline eyes narrowing. "You've exposed yourselves. You declare hostility." "We declare truth," Locke replied. "The only reason your fleet isn't dust right now is because we'd rather you go home and think about what happens if you ever come back." Silence for 12 full seconds. Then the transmission ended. In orbit, one ship turned. Then another. Then 5 more. Like falling dominoes, the coalition fleet began their silent retreat. No engines flaring, no transmission sent. They left the way they came, in formation, in silence, pretending they'd never been challenged. Ramos stood, arms stretched. Guess they didn't want a second date. Commander Halvorsen stared at the screens in disbelief. That's it? They're just leaving." "They didn't come for war," Mercer said. "They came to remind us who's in charge." "And we reminded them," Locke said. "They're not." The data packet Mercer compiled was sent before the fleet even left local space. It contained decrypted footage of coalition protection zones, the neural compliance towers, the prisons masked as embassies. It included the testimony of Colonel Jarrett Stone, video logs of the mind conditioning systems on Cressida V, and every sensor readout from the obelisk strike. By midnight, that packet had spread across 17 outer systems. By dawn, the defection began. A planetary governor from the Graxus cluster issued a statement withdrawing from coalition alignment. A week later, the ISO colonies reopened diplomatic lines with Earth for the first time in a generation. The Craven rebels, once isolated, now requested a full sharing of Earth's sniper doctrine. Ramos watched the updates on a wrist pad, then passed it to Mercer. "We might have just taught a galaxy how to fight." Mercer replied, "No, we reminded them they already knew how." 3 days later, Colonel Stone addressed the Earth Defense Assembly. He didn't speak of vengeance or retribution, only warning. He called the coalition system not an empire of war, but an empire of comfort, a cage wrapped in gold. He said Earth was dangerous only because it had never accepted domestication. His words were archived, translated, and transmitted over 400 colony worlds. On the roof of the command tower, Locke watched the city below. Lights flickered on in soft waves as night fell. Apartment towers, traffic lanes, beacon markers blinking above skyscrapers. Humanity's heartbeat, unchanged. He heard the elevator door open behind him. Ramos joined him, coat fluttering in the wind, carrying 2 mugs. He handed one to Locke without a word. "They'll be back," Ramos said after a long sip. "They always are," Locke replied. "What happens then?" Locke didn't answer immediately. He stared up at the stars, at the distant threads of orbital streaks where the last coalition ship had vanished. He thought about the questions Earth had been asked, the promises that had been offered. "They offer protection," he said at last. "We offered memory." Below them, children still played in the lower districts. Street vendors shouted in half a dozen languages. Music drifted up from a plaza band. It was peace, but it was Earth's peace. Inside, Mercer finalized the last relay. The report was simple, clinical, complete. It closed with one sentence. They offered Earth protection. We asked, from what? And now they asked themselves the same. The file was marked level black. It would be read by every major command unit on Earth, and, if Earth's growing influence held, by every free planet soon after. As night deepened, Locke stepped back from the edge. Ramos followed. The elevator descended in silence. There were no celebrations, no parades, just a knowing quiet. The kind that came after proving something elemental about who you were. Not superior, not righteous, just human. And for the first time in generations, the galaxy remembered what that meant.